Welcome to the Silver Lined Relaunch. And today I am so excited to have this guest because she is embodying everything that we deep down want to be doing, the excitement of life. And so I have Sundae Bean with me, and you're going to hear some really amazing stories here. And I think that you're going to be like inspired. There's going to be takeaways. Let's get started. You're listening to the Silver Lined Relaunch, and I'm your host, Hillary DeCesar, award-winning entrepreneur and transitional coach. Each week, I'll invite you to tune into inspirational stories, revealing how you too can turn ordinary experiences into the extraordinary. Feeling stuck? I'll share step-by-step strategies to fuel your ability to experience a life where silver linings are both abundant and possible. Sundae, first off, I love your name. Love your name. Sundae, welcome to the Silver Lined Relaunch.
Thank you. I cried about my name in kindergarten, but now I'm over it.
Were you thinking that maybe you would rather have like Friday or Saturday?
I don't know. I've had so many people make fun of my name over the decades. I tell people I offer them money if I hear a joke I haven't heard before.
Now, is there a backstory? Is there a reason that Sunday is Sunday?
Most people would think that my parents were hippies or had some reason, but actually my brother and sister have very normal American names, Carrie and Mike. And my father just thought of my name one day when he was at his little sister's kindergarten graduation, and it stuck with him until the third child.
Oh, that is so great. Yeah. Well, I did that whole, my kids I named Danielle, Derek, and Devin. And I thought, so thank goodness I didn't, I didn't keep going, because I started to run into what would be next? What would I do? Anyway, okay, enough about that. We are going to be jumping in. I want to hear, for those that don't know you, share some of who you are and let us know about the most significant relaunch that you've been through. And that's why you're here.
That's hard for me to choose because my life has been made up of so many relaunches. But just for those who aren't familiar with me, I came from the prairies of North Dakota. My father was a farmer, or is a farmer. My mom, a housewife. I ended up going to school in Spain in a cloister that was converted into a school, and then found myself backpacking through Southeast Asia and met my Swiss husband in Vietnam. That process, as I came into adulthood, was already a huge reset for a girl from the prairies. But what I didn't know was ahead of me is that I would end up permanently leaving the United States, or semi-permanently, moving to Europe, establishing a life there beyond my dreams, and then giving all of that up and doing it again in West Africa, and abruptly leaving West Africa to find myself in a pause phase until we suddenly left to South Africa. So my life is made up of many moments, and I haven't even mentioned motherhood, for example. That is definitely also a reset. Yeah. I have 2 children. So transition and reinvention is just part of my DNA.
So let's go back to this. And you have a podcast, and the name of the podcast is
Expat Happy Hour.
Okay. Expat Happy Hour.
Yes.
Because you continue to move, to reinvent yourself, rebrand yourself in all of these new locations. But let's go back to the first one, the first time where you're you meet this amazing man in Southeast Asia, and you're like, okay, we're getting married. We're making this happen. What is it about the thrill or the adventure or this going to all these different countries? Where did that start?
That's
from the prairie land, right?
Yeah.
Where did it start?
Small. I remember being in the bathtub one time, when I must have been 8 years old, and I had been watching National Geographic, and the sand dunes and all these areas around the planet. And I didn't have a sense of national boundaries. I thought, hey, this planet is amazing and I want to see it. And I want to see all these other amazing people that are on this planet. And I came from a very homogenous community. And I think I just had a hunger at a very early age to see what was out there. And that's, led to a series of choices.
Okay, but your first big adventure, what was that?
Mm-hmm. Gosh, my first adventure.
Like the first one that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm no longer in the prairie land.
Mm-hmm. Culturally, I think one of the things, even though I had left the US and traveled around Western Europe, and we went to Tangier, so we're in Northern Africa and Morocco, that was pretty interesting, being in the Casbah and watching like all the things that you imagine when you hear the word Casbah, with the smells and the colors, and culturally hearing things. I was with some friends from our study abroad program, and they were talking to the man, and they said, why do you let your women lead you? And I don't know if they were being playful or what they were trying to do, but I remember thinking, what? Like, things are really different. That was 20 years ago. That was a lot of traveling and adventure. But I think the biggest adventure was when I left the security of Switzerland with my young boys and gave up everything I had built. You have to understand, trying to learn a brand new language, coach in a different language, get established professionally, get integrated in a brand new culture, and had done the work to do all of that. And then I picked all of that up and left it and brought my little babies to West Africa. And it was a completely different language context, cultural context. It was not as much security or even as much development as where I was living. And that was probably the biggest one, because I thought, wow, this is dramatically different context than
what was
what I
the
was
impetus
living
that
before.
made you move? What is it? Like, why do you
So, well, I mean, pragmatically, that was if you look at it from the outside, that was a job change for my husband, but that's really not what was going on. I knew my husband and I are a binational family. So we speak 2 languages at home. We have 2 passports, per person. And we have 2 cultures that we bring together. And we were both curious, what would it be like if we were in a third culture? What would it be like if we were not in your country or not in my country? And we got to create new ways of being. And also that idea for our children to say, what would it be like if our bilingual kids could go to a third space and experience life there? And that's the bigger picture, I think, that really drew it. And for me, because I'm also an interculturalist and a coach, I knew I had established myself well in Switzerland. And I knew that I had already kind of maxed out on my growth. And if I had just stayed longer, my growth would stagnate. And that would also, I wouldn't be showing up as a professional as I want to, because I always want to be on the cutting edge of learning. And so it was a way for me to really have to let go of, release my life, right, in Switzerland, and restart and create a completely new way of being in abroad. And for me, it was also a reset, because I went from a very comfortable corporate position to starting my own company and now I have 100% location independent business. My clients are all over the world, but that took some time to build. And one of the most pivotal times was I was really wondering, do I really want to let go of all of this? I had worked so hard.
Yeah, what a great question, right? Yeah,
I mean, I had worked
you started
so
to
hard.
develop, you'd worked, you have these
Yeah.
kids. It's like starting over again means not just you, it's the children too. It's your relationships, it's trying to get, the friendships, the work. I mean, yeah.
Everything. And I was with a friend over lunch, and I just said, I had worked so hard to get where I was in Switzerland. And I feel like I'm going to start from scratch if I give it all up. And she said, you're not starting from scratch. She said, you bring all of your skills and your experience with you. And, I'm the coach and she's sitting there over a salad coaching me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like it was that light bulb moment where I was able to let go of fear and really trust in my skills and abilities that I could lean on, but also the ones that I was going to create. So that was a really important reset for me.
So, Sundae, where are you right now?
In my journey?
Both. How about that? I was actually talking countries right now.
Oh, country. Right now I'm in South Africa. So I'm in Pretoria.
Okay. So you're in South Africa. And at this point, you have lived in how many countries?
Long-term, the US, Switzerland, Burkina Faso, and South Africa, and Spain, but that was only a semester.
Okay. And there has been so much wisdom that has come from being in all these different locations and being a chameleon. And as you said, you're an interculturalist, right? Which, I mean, up until I read your bio and started following you, I didn't know what that was. Can you share with us what exactly you're doing?
Okay. So for people who aren't familiar with that sort of field, interculturalists are people who study culture, and it doesn't mean we study countries. We study the ways in which our differences make a meaningful difference, or the ways in which our similarities create ease when we work together. So for example, if you are hierarchy oriented or equality oriented, that will impact how you love, how you live, how you work, right? If you're a direct communicator or indirect communicator. And so I study those dynamics, and they're always embedded in power and history, context, and identity. And many people start that entry to those interesting things through nation, through countries, through traveling. But the color of a passport and the name on the top of the book is only one layer that when we get deeper, we discover so much more. And that passion that was lit in me when I traveled. And when I had to learn to have deep relationship with people from a very different way of communicating or seeing the world. So that's an interculturalist. I also do coaching, probably much like you in terms of helping people through their transformations and their changes. But I just do it with an audience of people who are also at the same time with their own internal growth, changing context, bringing their family away from one area to the next, and are really living with what I would call Olympic level complexity. Because I always say to people, it's hard enough to be like in your 40s, eat well, not yell at your kids, be kind and make time for date night, right? Like that's already hard. And then do that when you have to pack up your entire house and move it, and then you don't know what country you're going to land in. So that sort of complexity is the kind of things I deal with my clients.
I like that Olympic level complexity. So are you finding that there are a lot more people these days that are actually thinking about going and becoming an expat somewhere? And, and why is that? Like what's happening?
Well, we noticed in the numbers, we noticed a spike of Americans inquiring about moving abroad during the Trump administration, which I thought was interesting. And the projections of people living abroad are that it will continue to grow. Because of the grounding of many people who are globally mobile, there have been some questions how much that will return. But what we do know is there are about 50 million rotational expats, so people who move every 2 to 4 years for their work. And there are about 250 million people who are living outside of their passport country. So it is definitely something. I also think with the rise of gig culture and digital nomads, and especially after Corona, that it will increase because now we know it's okay to work location independent. Now we know we can. And so I honestly think that the trend will continue.
What are the top countries that people are primarily going to?
Gosh, I would have to get the numbers right in front of me, but I know really popular destinations are places that are very high level security and financial stability, right? So you're going to have places like Switzerland and Singapore, Australia. So it depends on who's moving for, and why are they moving for quality of life. But honestly, to be really honest, I think that what people estimate is that when you go to a highly secure, wealthy place, it might be lonely and isolating. So people don't expect that they're not going to love their life in Europe, for example. And people might feel afraid to go to other places because they just don't know anything. And when I told friends and family that I was moving to West Africa, it, it was quite a range of responses. It's because people have no idea. All they've ever heard of was things in the movies, horrible stereotypes, fear-based responses. And they don't understand actually what they're missing out on. And there was a time when, I don't mean to bring up the former administration again, but there was a time when Trump brought up a statement about Africa being, I don't know if swearing is allowed on this podcast, but SHIT, whole countries.
It's okay. We've all heard it and said it.
Yes. So that was what he said about destinations on the continent that I live. And there was like a wave of social media afterwards of people from all over the continent in beautiful places, doing amazing things, saying, "Hey, Trump, you have no idea what you're talking about." And so I hate to say best places, because I know there's a lot of really lonely people in very developed cities in Europe that let's say Americans would romanticize, but they're isolated and they have a hard time meeting people. However, for example, living in East Africa or West Africa or South Africa, I know lots of people who've created amazing community and have had really rich experiences. So
I think of this as, whether you are moving to a new city, like let's just say even in the US, or whether you're going abroad, there are those fundamental like nerves, right? And it's funny because we're moving right now from San Francisco Bay Area to Colorado, Boulder. And I know very, very few people there. So I kind of have that like, but I know the language, right? And I know, I know a lot about the area. But how do you recommend people go to these places? And are there certain steps that you're like, you know what, here's a great way to assimilate yourself into this new environment? What do you suggest?
I think it's a lot of forethought is important. So before you go, you can already start creating connections with people before you get there. So if you know you're moving, right, and then you can create a connection with one or two fellow entrepreneurs or coaches or avid runners, whatever it is, and they can give you a sense of security, that can also help soften your landing. They're also really great resource for local insight. And the problem is we have so many apps to tell us this, but there's nothing better than actual human communication where we talk to people and we have real conversations. And then you can start creating connections, because you can live in an amazing space, but if you don't have connection, we're seeing that also the COVID crisis, that we're starving for connection. So one or two people when you land is really important. And the other thing I think is important for people to be patient with themselves about is you actually step into a place of incompetence and you're not expecting it, especially if you're going from California to Denver. You think, I've got this, same currency, same language, etc. But you don't know where the grocery store is. Do you have to bring your own bag to go to the store, or do they have bags there? Is it polite when you go to a friend's house to bring flowers, or should you have brought wine? Like there's things that you don't know, and you're constantly living in a space of incompetence, and that's okay. Right.
So that's true. I'm more concerned where I'm going to get my roots done.
Exactly. And that ongoing.
Let's call a spade a spade. That's really my concern.
So those things those go a long way, but like giving yourself some grace for, you will be incompetent, like just plan for it. And then I would really work on establishing your connections with the people that you love, that you left geographically, and invest in the relationships that are now new to you. And of course, and I know that you know this already, and I'm sure your listeners too, but don't forget about the relationship that might be at home, because when you're in, because what's often happening is we have our regular lives and then we add transition on top of it. So we don't cancel parts of our life, we add it on top. And so the cup is like flowing over with commitments and responsibility. And that's where we actually dump on the people we love the most. We
Oh,
drop our
that is
guard.
so good. Those are pearls that are big. I mean, those are good ones, especially, it was interesting when you said about the people at home, like making sure to keep in contact with them. A lot of times we feel like, oh, we're here, we need to really throw ourselves into it. But there is that element of, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Right. And here's a very good example. For example, when I met my husband, I was hitchhiking throughout Southeast Asia and he saw this woman on her
So
own.
great.
Don't tell my mom.
So great.
He saw this confident woman who was very independent. But when then he saw me in Switzerland, put me in a different context, I stood in front of 3 sandwiches and they were pre-wrapped, already made. And it was ham, salami, or cheese. And he's like, which one do you want? And I was frozen because I didn't want any of those. Right. And he's like, what? You were the lady who was confidently backpacking throughout Southeast Asia. Now you can't even pick a sandwich. So you change the context and the individual changes. So you need to get to know who your partner is in this new context, in this transition. Because before they were in the height of competence, right? And now we're going to a place of incompetence. So you do have to also give each other more grace for impatience or misunderstandings. And it's even more important to mindfully connect with each other during those times, because it's not about you, it's you in a new context. And you need to almost like relearn each other in that new phase.
This is so good for, I'm sure, people hearing right now that are going to be making a move. It is the bells are going, the alarms actually, forget about the bells. The alarms are going off in my mind because, my husband, Ian, I think about like my integration. I think about like, oh, and as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, she's got something there. I hadn't even thought about it. Hadn't thought about that, where he's going through the same thing. He's going to be like thinking about like, where do I go work out? Where do I do this? Where do I? Yeah, that's really good. And to have that connection, because for us, we had 2 different houses. This is a second marriage. We had 2 different houses and we were all over. And then we tried to come together in an apartment in San Francisco. COVID hit. We ended up back in my house. And now we're finally coming together with our own place. So a big relaunch for us that's about to be happening in the next couple of weeks. But I really like what you said, because it does, whether it's even just, let's say moving 30 minutes away, there is this need to make sure that you're going back and connecting and at all those different places. So I think that was really great. When you start to, work with people, and is there something that you find is a common thread with what you coach and how you deliver that message that you really always start with or lean into?
Yeah, I always start with mindset. What I noticed when, in your language, you would call it relaunch. I call it transformation. I do a thing called Year of Transformation. And I always start with the way in which they make themselves small, or the way in which they limit themselves. And they might not even know it, because that inevitably makes the dream phase sort of amputated or smaller than it needs to be, because they're starting from that base spot. So I call it's kind of like morning sickness, where you want to have a baby and you're really excited, but you're vomiting every day and you're like, why am I doing this? So the first 3 months where we're really confronting, what do I really believe? And you probably know this, whenever I've worked with women, it really boils down to a sense of self-worth and self-confidence has taken a hit somewhere along the way. And especially accompanying partners who give up their career, perhaps, maybe even they're more educated than their partner. And they go for the adventure, for the family, and their partner keeps their financial stability and they give up that part of their identity. So it's especially true there. And we work on the mindset. And then once they get clear on what their, top 10 favorite lies are that they tell themselves, then we start to
I love that, your favorite lies. That's so good.
My favorite lies I tell myself are it's going to be difficult and it's going to take a long time. Right. Those are mine. And I've had those, I discovered them in 2008, and now it's okay because when I notice that they're there, I can at least be playful with them and work with them. Right. But if I didn't know they were there, I would just believe the story. So we do that. And then we'll go into the dreaming space and really give them permission to ask for what they want. And also something they might not have ever imagined before, something that doesn't feel rational, something that just pops from their body, right? And that's when it gets really exciting because then we start making it happen. So
love that. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we could keep talking about all the experiences and keep talking about, the tips and things that you recommend and the journey, the spiritual journey, the mindset journey, the tactical, how you do it. But at this point, we have to now go into rapid fire. Those rapid fire questions. And I mentioned this to you that I used to have these questions where I would, same ones. And I got bored with them. So I started to be like, well, I'll just use one or two. And then I'm like, well, let's just throw them all out. And let me just, ask what I really want to ask. So huge fan
of travel.
You make me nervous.
I'll try not to.
Huge fan of travel. So favorite country that you have visited?
Laos.
Okay. Favorite country for food?
Thailand.
And what was it? What was the thing you loved?
I love green curry so hard.
Green curry. What is the difference between green curry, yellow curry, or red curry? What is the difference?
It's the base curry that they make it from, the spices that they make it from. That
just changes the color and the taste.
Yeah.
And did not know that.
It's made from different things. And of course there's other flavors. I did a Thai cooking course, but it was a long time ago. So I can't remember all the details.
Well, one of my favorite is the peanut sauce in Thai food. I mean, you put that on, I could put it on literally everything and I will eat tons of it. I love it. Okay. If you had one place to go visit on vacation in the next, like when things are open, we understand that. Where would it be?
Besides my parents, you mean?
Where would it be?
Okay. If I'm not going to go see my family, I would go to Bhutan.
Okay. Tell us where that is.
In Laos. So this is Southeast Asia, right by Laos. They're Nepal, all in the Himalayas area. So I'm a big fan of Southeast Asia.
Okay. And why do you like Bhutan?
Bhutan is, they have such a fascinating culture and they've done a lot to protect it. They have not allowed a lot of outside influence. And because I love studying culture, I think it would be really fascinating to look at cultures that has persevered over centuries and millennia and not been deeply impacted by outside influence. So that's absolutely why I would go there.
Okay. We thinking that your next country to live in might be Laos?
Well, we don't have a choice for Laos. We will find out what options are on the table in summer, but I am hoping to get in the direction of Asia.
Okay. So we just got a little insight here that you're moving again.
rotate. Your assignments are on rotation for the way that our lives work. And in a year or two, or every 2 to 4 years, your assignment comes up and you go to another place, but you don't always know where that is. So we'll be able to find out what is on rotation and then try to get those favorite places. So I'm hoping the next spot we go to is Asia.
Oh, how amazing is that? Okay. Favorite poolside beverage?
Oh gosh. Poolside beverage. Because it's cold. A nice cold IPA would be good.
Oh,
Or if
okay.
it's, early afternoon, I would just go for a nice coffee.
All right. And then if I were to ask you about what is your favorite beauty product and the name?
I want to tell you, it is
This is one that
my
we've already
favorite
talked
beauty
about and I'm
product.
laughing already. All right. Bring it on, girl.
Sleep, 8 hours of sleep is my favorite beauty product. And you will know when I'm using it. And you will know when I'm not.
Is that not so true? If we just got more sleep, how much better we look. I mean, no doubt. Little sleep. And as you said, little sleep, little water, little exercise. That's actually truly, as you said, the best beauty product. I love that.
Yep.
Okay. And last but not least, what does powerhouse of possibility mean to you?
Oh my gosh, inner strength. If I can just tap in to that inner strength, then it makes it all a powerhouse of possibility.
And Sundae, you've got such a wealth of inner strength. I mean, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking about your journey and the journey that you're still on, and it doesn't, as we discussed earlier, it doesn't matter the destination. It's about the journey, and you're living life. I always say live now, love now. And it's like, I feel it. I feel it from you. So thank you so much for sharing this amazing journey that you are on. And how can people get in touch with you and learn more about what you do?
Oh, I would love to hear from people. My website is sundaebean.com, SUNDAEBEAN, and my podcast is Expat Happy Hour.
Oh, definitely. We will have this in the show notes. Thank you again. And so excited to just keep hearing where you are off to. I feel like it's Where's Waldo, right? But instead it's Where's Sundae.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait. Now you know who to call if you're feeling stressed out about your transition in Colorado.
I've got you. I mean, I'm like, you're my new friend. This is going to be, yes. I need a coach to get me through this. So thank you again. And it was a pleasure having you on the show.
It's been fun.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Silver Aligned Relaunch. If I said something today that resonated with you, will you please head over to iTunes right now and leave us a 5-star review and share this episode with others and help them find the silver linings as well. And don't forget, you can have immediate access to the show notes, any giveaways, and the links to those amazing beauty products at therelaunchco.com/podcast. Until next time, there's always a silver lining. And now is the time to hit the reset button to relaunch those transitions into transformations.